Okay, we're going to continue in our study here. This is session 3 of the prophetic signs in the heavens. This is a follow-up to sessions 1 and 2, where I covered the end time prophecies and the timing of those. Well, I've taken a look at the signs in the heavens, and that's what this is going to be about. And other people have had these in their presentations, these signs in the heavens, like Dewey Burton's Daniel's timeline, but he didn't really draw it out very well, and also he pointed to signs in the heavens that are there every year, so it didn't make much sense to me. But I found some interesting curiosities about the timing of some of these signs in the heavens for 2017, which we covered in the prophecies about 2017 in the previous sessions. Well, in Genesis 1:14, it says that God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and for years." And he goes on there. Well, the two lights that he makes there is the light to rule the day and the light to rule the night, the sun and the moon, verse 16. So he's saying that the sun and moon are for signs and for seasons. And signs, we understand, indications. But seasons, the definition of that is an appointed time or a festival. The definition is right there on the screen. So it's pointing to these assemblies, these feast days that we're supposed to keep. And then if you jump to Luke 21:25, there should be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And upon earth distress of nations, with perplexity in the sea and the waves roaring, men hearts failing them for fear for looking on those things which are coming on the earth. So he tells you also in Luke that there's going to be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And in this presentation, you'll see that we find signs in all three of these. Of course, in verse 27, he says, "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory." So after these signs, Joel 2, verse 30 says, "And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke, and the sun shall be darkened, turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of Yahuwah comes." Well, the moon into blood, that's interesting. A blood moon, we'll cover those. And the sun turned into darkness sounds like an eclipse, or else there's such bad cloud cover that it's blotted out. So we've got a multitude of prophetic utterances here, or writings, that point to some really fascinating things in the heavens that are going to occur at the same time, which should fit into what we've been studying. In Matthew 24:29, it says, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven." Well, what's the sign of the Son of Man? Of course, you got to scratch your head on that and see, well, does Scripture tell us somewhere where the sign of the Son of Man is and what we should be looking for? Well, we're going to take a look at these, but before we get started into that, this message isn't for everybody. This is only for repentant people. You know, if you're still keeping Sunday instead of the Sabbath, and he told you to keep the Sabbath, it's a death penalty offense. This message probably isn't for you. You got to start keeping the Sabbath. If you're still keeping Christmas, solstice worship, when the sun goes lowest in the horizon and rises back up, instead of keeping Feast of Tabernacles, or you're keeping you're not keeping Passover, and you're keeping Easter, the fertility goddess with bunnies and rabbits and eggs, then this probably isn't for you. Now, if you're keeping Passover and that, you might find this interesting. You might be one of those that has ears to hear. And if you're still paying your preacher, in contradiction to Micah chapter 3, which says, their preachers preach for hire, they prophesy for hire. If you're still hiring your preacher, you're encouraging him to do wickedness, to tickle your ears. And he's supposed to labor 6 days just like you. He can eat off the tithe, but he's supposed to labor just like you, and you're discouraging him from doing 6 days labor and preaching on the seventh day, the Sabbath. Saturday, Friday sundown till Saturday sundown. So that's who this is aimed at, those people. The rest of you can tune out and go back to one of the other channels that you enjoy, and someone that'll give you some good sophistry. Okay, continuing on here. these blood moons were mentioned in Joel, and there are 4 blood moons coming up. And these blood moons are they're a full lunar eclipse, and just at the end of that eclipse, from the shadow of the Earth, the moon turns to a red hue, and I have a poor picture of it here. It's more oranges, but it actually gets redder than that. But there's 4 of these called a tetrad coming up, and there's a lot of other guys that do paid preachers that do. By the way, you won't find any donation buttons on any of my stuff. Don't take any donations. Don't bother sending any. Just send it back. But you'll notice there's 4 of them, and this tetrad blood moon thing doesn't come up very often. Last time it happened was in 1967 and 68, and prior to that, I think it was in 47 and 48, and then it didn't happen for several hundred years. It's a rare event. Well, what makes this fascinating in the years coming up with our 2017 and our prophecies from the prior 2 messages, there's 4 blood moons that occur right on the feast day cycles. There's one that occurs on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or the day after, 4/16, 2014. Passover is on 4/15, so that's actually the first day of Unleavened Bread is what that's on. It's a high Sabbath, and there's a blood moon on that day, and fulfilling the Joel prophecy that the moon will be turned to blood before the coming of Yahuwah. Well, the next one is on Tabernacles on 2014, and then after that on Passover, right on Passover Day on 2015, 4/4, April 4th, and then on 9/29 of 2015. So that's during Tabernacles, during the time frame of that feast. So it's pretty fascinating. These blood moons are lining up with what appears to be these end times, and of course 2014 is the kickoff of the 3.5 years of tribulation. So it's going to be kicked off by a blood moon, and there's more. And this continues on in Matthew 24:29, where it says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. So what are the events that are happening here? He says that this is after the tribulation, so it'll be at the end of this 3.5-year period, which would put this in 2017, these events. And the sun's going to be darkened. That sounds like an eclipse. And the moon shall not give her light. That's a lunar eclipse. And then the stars shall fall from heaven, and the sign of the Son of Man is going to be in the heavens. Well, we have a partial lunar eclipse on August the 7th, 2017, just 1 month before September for trumpets. Actually, 1 month and 2 weeks. And then we have a total solar eclipse across the USA. If you look this up on the NASA website, it spans across the whole U.S. And a little further. On August the 21st, 14 days later. And then exactly a month later, we come to the trumpets, September 22nd, 2017. Now that's pretty fascinating, because that fits the first 2 there. The lunar eclipse, the solar eclipse that turned to darkness. And now what's this sign of the Son of Man in the heavens? And I was doing some scratching. The commentaries on this are very poor from the paid preachers. And you look around. Well, you can find it in Revelation 12:1. In Revelation 12:1 it says, and there appeared a great wonder in the heavens. Now this great wonder, that's a great indicator. Wonder is an indicator. A woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now, it's fascinating. I actually saw this on another video. I was poking around trying to figure out what this was, and I found there's a lady, I'll put her reference. She does a nice 4 or 5 minute video on this, and you can watch that, to show this sign that's in the heaven, in the stars. And we'll pick it up there in the next session, and I'll cover this the sign of the coming of the Son of Man and when that is. Thanks.